things are going to be very bad if Donald Trump implements the tariff plan that he pushed off by, like, 3 months. Just with the tariffs on China alone, we're going to start feeling that and like the 10% across the board tariffs, we're going to start feeling that in like the next couple weeks. I know a lot of places have already raised prices. I know a lot of places are already running short on some things. That's going to intensify in a way that is going to be readily apparent. And so, like, that doesn't mean we're cooked, but it does mean that, like, there's going to be some economic pain. There are going to be shortages of things. It's going to be deeply unpleasant. And I also want to point out that, like, however bad it is for us here in the United States of America, it is going to be exponentially worse for other places that are having tariffs imposed on their goods. There are places around the world that rely almost entirely on exporting goods for the American public to consume. Those places are going to effectively be economically destroyed. It's bad. Like, entire cities or countries even might basically dissolve in the economic atomic bomb that is being dropped. That sounds hyperbolic, but it's not. Yeah, Lesotho, for example, is going to be one of those countries that might, like, economically be destroyed. It's going to be real bad. Admin, thank you for the tier 1 sub.
GL, if you can't leave, but I have a degree, 4 years experience, savings and Irish citizenship. Do I find a job remotely, or put in my 2 weeks?
No idea.
Fascism.
No idea. Good luck. We'll do our best to fight here, but if we fail, unfortunately, there's not any place on this planet where you're not going to feel what's happening. It's kind of the that's kind of one of the downsides. China will be okay. I mean, China will be okay. America will be okay. But there are places that are not going to be remotely okay. Well, to some extent. No. Like, America is going to be, like, economically fucked, but that's still going to be okay compared to, like, places that have entirely built their economies on American consumerism. Those people will die. Like, that the people there are not going to be okay. America will be okay compared to a country like Lesotho. You fucking kidding me? Like, the entire country will be put out of work. Basically, all they do is export stuff to the United States. So, like, America's not going to be okay, but relatively, we're going to be better off than other places. Nah, I honestly, Storm, I think that we are going to experience enough economic pain that people are not going to be... Well, let me put it this way. The fascist tech guys who pushed for and funded this, even they are going, oh, wait a minute, we don't want this tariff shit. There's a reason why Elon Musk is on record as opposing these tariffs. And it's because economically, there's no benefit here. There's no benefit to anyone, because Donald Trump doesn't understand what tariffs are. So, I don't know. Worth mentioning a little bit, a moment to, consider that, when a world superpower just cuts off trade with countries that basically have existed to pump America full of goods to consume, that's gonna be really bad when their industries die. I will eat my shorts and buy a tier 3 sub. What? Think everyone's okay with hurting others at this point? That self-preservation is out the window? They're foaming at the mouth for our blood? Disagree. There's a reason Donald Trump backed off of sacking Jerome Powell. And it's very specifically not because he likes Jerome Powell, but because there are still limits on what he can do. When should we expect the riots to start if they're going to occur? I mean, honestly, probably after, like... I don't know when... Like, this is pure speculation on my part, but I would expect some incredibly strong protests on June 14th, spurred in part by the beginning of pain from the tariffs hitting in full force. And then I would also expect that to worsen through September, and probably, if I were to guess when a riot might take place, this is just, again, me guessing, but it would be around when Congress is trying to finalize its budget for next year. Because remember, Chuck Schumer kicked that can down the road until September. And in September, I would imagine that's going to be around when people are well and truly getting fucked by a lot of these tariff costs and losing their jobs because of said tariffs. And, like... They're going to be voting on whether or not to take away your Medicaid and your Social Security. So people generally have that as like one of their top priorities, because if people lose their Social Security or their Medicaid, people will literally die. You know, and you can go without your treats in order to prioritize necessities, but like people can't go without their Social Security checks. Any idea why Trump is acting like a total jackass with some of his public statements? Because he's a dumbass. He doesn't know anything. And he's either increasingly checked out in the sense that he just doesn't give a shit about any of this anymore, or he's genuinely mentally declining, and it, like, every single time he shows up on screen, it's just like a shit show. Yeah, like, he's already a moron, and the dementia is starting to hit. Does that, like, that's why. I mean, he's turning 79 years old, guys. It's not beyond the pale that, like, he starts hitting dementia. I'm also thinking mental decline, Nightlight Plushie Jesus. That's just my take, though. Trump supporters are just dumb as fuck. You know, I don't know if they're dumb as fuck. I think a lot of them aren't. But they just have a different paradigm related to what they care about. Does that make sense? Like, they care about more immediate things. It's something I call, like, you know how, like, babies have object permanence? There's a similar thing going on with a lot of Republicans when it comes to, like, what they can care about. And what they care about tends to be what they can see, and abstract caring just simply isn't a thing for them. So if they aren't seeing it in their day-to-day lives, it may as well not exist. There is like an empathy event horizon for them, and it's only when these things start coming home that they start caring about it. And it's not because they're dumb per se, it's just they have like that event horizon that they cannot pass through. Does that make sense? And you know, for different Republicans, you're going to get like different levels of event horizon. You know, some Republicans only care about like their immediate family. Some Republicans only care about like their town. Some Republicans only care about their country. But that seems to be like the extent of like the event horizon from Republicans at the very least. Out of sight, out of mind. Exactly, Kraken Pill. Yeah, some more news' recent video on the right's war on empathy is really, really good. I'd recommend people checking that out, because I don't think it is a lack of intelligence. At least in a lot of cases, I think it's a lack of... not even a lack, it's just like the empathy is different. It has a different decision-making paradigm. Perfect example, so many anti-gay politicians flipped from genocide after realizing their child was gay, but not before. Yep, exactly, Buffalo Guy. And this like empathy horizon has been strengthened and encouraged by Donald Trump for like the last decade, you know? So it's just kind of like you've got like a cult of personality directly leading to the shrinking of that horizon and like providing easy answers with thought terminating cliches that dissuade people from actually, you know, thinking beyond the bounds of, you know, the personality, Donald Trump. And so like people just are fine to graze in his fields, you know? I guess. But crime, despite historically low crime rates, is something they're concerned about because you see criminals on TV. Exactly. Because especially in conservative circles, there's a concerted effort to like inundate, for example, like white supremacist news sites will just run constant articles of black people doing crimes, you know? And so like the typically very conservative people who go to those websites watch that all the time, and they care about that because to them it's immediate. To them it is something intruding into their sphere, and because they don't care to like go beyond that, they don't care to investigate it, they don't care to like look into it more, they just are like, oh, okay, so this is just happening all the time. This is real life. And I'm sure that this happens as well on the left, but we're just a lot less prone to whatever is happening with a lot of Republicans. And since there are not many cases conservatives can spin against trans people, they always bring up the same people in cases. Yes, exactly. It's why they bring up like 2 or 3 incidents that have happened over like the last 5 years, and they act like it is an epidemic of violence. It's you know, depressing. My mom has this degradation of empathy. She cried about the deportations because she's so happy it's finally happening. She says it's to keep us safe, but we're adults and one of her children is trans, which she won't fully respect. She's growing distant even from her children because of this empathy degradation. Yeah. You know, like, I don't know. I tend to think people are much better off focusing on like mobilizing liberals and independents rather than trying to salvage people who are primed to not care. You know, like when your argument is this thing is harming many, many people, it is really hard to argue to someone why you should care about the intrinsic value of human life, you know, for people who you don't see, you know? It's the abstract versus the material. It's, you know, like in a lot of ways, that's kind of the case, right? All right, let's get a move on. That was a long thing. Maybe that can be cut into a segment.
Riverboat Jack is coming to town. All the viewers gather around. Twitch and YouTube and swishy streams. All that content is bursting the seams. Politics, being and plenty more. Your sense of fashion you'll adore. So grab your stuff and hop aboard. We're going straight to Jack's Discord. Riverboat Jack.